Alrighty, so hey guys, Ridgeway here with your next lesson for world history since 1700 to the present. So now that we've had the chance to talk about kind of, again, the class overview and our expectations and all that good stuff in the syllabus, now we're going to take a moment here in this lesson as our first asynchronous one to really talk about how our mindset is as we approach this class and to really talk about again, how we kind of approach the whole history thing. Now, with that in mind, a couple of caveats here. One, this is basically is just about as much as historical thinking as it is also your current day thinking, and I'll explain more about that here in a second. Second, with these video walkthroughs, please understand that you can pause the video at any given time. You can watch it at slower speeds or faster speeds depending on what works best for you, and also you can use YouTube's generated auto captions as well to help. Okay, so all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and walk through the lesson as if I were to do it in person. Please be aware I also will include some times where you should pause. And I will make sure that I tell you in the video if you need to pause and go ahead and work ahead of me so that way I don't spoil anything as I'm talking. Okay, so enough all that jazz out of the way. Let's get to it. So our first warm-up. So we are going to be using an app in this class called Pear Deck. Okay, now Pear Deck, if you happen to have used something like it in high school, you might have run into apps like this that are similar. There's many of them out there. Nearpod is one. Pear Deck is one. There's all these things that are kind of similar to this. But what it basically does is it takes these Google Slides that we have here and it turns them into an interactive experience that will help you at least interact with the content, at least in a little bit more of a meaningful way. And this is really important because not only is content that you interact with a little bit more meaningful to you, but it also is the way that I'm assessing your attendance actually doing this lesson. Okay, so how you're going to get to this application is you're simply just going to click the pair right here on slide number 2, and then you're going to open up this application. I'm going to go ahead and do it on my computer just as if I were a student. Okay, so that way you can actually see me using it. You just want to make sure that you give it any permissions that you need to your UND account. Okay, so how are we feeling today? Sure, we'll say great, and then we'll get going. Okay, there also is an immersive reader function for this application, so if you want something translated into you for a different language, there's a lot of different functionalities here that I would love to you can click down here and explore more about that. But for now, let's get into it. Okay, so Battles of the Brain, Historical Thinking in the Present. I'm going to follow the directions on the slide, and I'm just going to then jump ahead to slide number 3. So what's something filling your bucket today, and what's something that's draining it? And then you type your answers on the lines here. You can't see it because it's behind my head, but I can go ahead and move it and show you that there is a text feature right down here on the bottom left-hand side, and I can literally just click that and then just go up here and type. So something is, starting class, and then something draining, right? You can come up with your own answer there. So go ahead, pause the video if you need to complete this, yes, we will, get going, okay? Alrighty. So if you have gone ahead and completed that warm-up, let's get into what the objectives are going to be here for us today. Okay, so we're going to take some time and analyze some historical misunderstandings that we might have. We're going to then also look at several common thinking instincts and talk about what those are and why they matter for us in this class. Okay, so first things first. I want you to do a short reading here, and this is on the next slide, and this is about a lost tribe that was recently contacted here in the Amazon rainforest. And so if you go on here to slide number 6, you will see a slide here that has quite a bit of text. This is adapted from an article that was written recently, and I just want you to take some time, take 2 minutes, and read it, okay? We will come back to what we're doing with this here in just a second, but if you need to go ahead and pause the video, go ahead and do so now so that you can take some time to go ahead and read this thing. Okay, so moving on. All All right, so what you're going to then do with that reading, okay, once you're done with it, is over here on the right-hand side, you will now see that in Pear Deck, again, you have to be in Pear Deck in order for this to pop up. Okay, so again, if you miss that, you need to go all the way back to slide number 2, okay, to click this pair to log in. Is right here on slide number 7. You're going to type your responses to these two questions. Okay. So what were your initial impressions of the Nasarima? That's how you pronounce that. Tribe. Use adjectives to describe them or maybe your feelings about them. And then 2. What could this tribe do to improve themselves? Okay. So then we'll go on to the next slide when you're ready. Again, pause the video if you need to. We will come back to this tribe later and talk more about them. Okay. Awesome. So that brings us then to this next thing, okay? So it says, so you think you know something about the world and who lives on it, all right? I need to know what you know about the world right now. So right here, there's this red button, okay? And it says, go to the UN goals quiz below, and once you're finished, type your percent score into Pear Deck, okay? So you're gonna click this thing, okay? And right here, it says UN goals exam. Okay, and there's 18 questions. You're just gonna do it, and as you fill them out, you know, once you get done, okay, with the very end of it, you're gonna go back to our Pear Deck session here, and you're gonna type in your percent. So of course, because I was amazing at it, I got 100%. Right? Once you put in the number, it is submitted. Okay, so you just put in your number there, and then you're good to go. Okay, now. Again, pause the video if you need to right now. Take some time to do this. I mean, 18 questions isn't, gonna like take you 2 minutes. It's something you're gonna need to sit there and think about. Okay? So how'd you do on it? Okay? If you didn't do well, don't worry. Okay? I will say the average for a lot of students when they take this for the first time is roughly around like 25 to 30%. And what this really shows us is that our understanding of how the world is right now is, I'm going to call it hazy, but in some cases just like misguided, or might be misinterpreted, or maybe just misunderstood. And something we're going to do to explain why this is, okay, is we're going to do something called instinct stations. All right. So what this is, and you can see right here that there is a link. It says click here to begin. Okay. So you're going to click on this. All right. It's going to say, would you like to make a copy of them? You say, yes, I would like to make a copy. And what you are going to do then, okay, is you are going to have this thing. It's going to open up a new slide deck for you. It says copy of instinct stations, right? And this is now yours to edit. Okay, you're going to play with this. You can, as you'll see here on, it says go on to slide number 2, and it says there's a guide that you can complete along with it. This is just something that helps you map out, what these instincts are. Okay. And right here, okay, on slide number 2, you can see all the different stations that I would like you to do. Okay, and if you click on one of them, it will jump you to it. So for example, and I'll just model this one for you, slide number 3, okay, it says this one's called the Great Divide. So it says, using the blue circles below, there's 10, so think of each blue circle as 10%. Split or stack the world up on the line into how many countries you think are poor, are in between, or are rich. Okay, so again, just giving you this as an example here. Okay, so maybe I'm like, okay, maybe there's like this percentage of countries kind of over here that are poor. And again, I'm just clicking and dragging with my mouse, right? Or a trackpad or whatever you're using. And I'm like, maybe there's like some here that are like in the middle, and then like maybe there's just a few that are like really, really rich, right? And that's going to be how I'm going to interact with it. And when I think I've got the right answer, I'm going to go on to the next slide. And every single station works like this in some way, shape, or form. You're kind of like treating the slides like they're like an interactive notebook, okay? And then I'm not going to spoil the answer for you, okay? But then if you go on to the next slide in every single one, okay, it will give you the solution to what the actual answer is. It'll have a little video that'll help explain it and why that is, okay, and what is exactly going on in our brains and why we think the answers are the answers, that we put down and why they're not. And then it'll send you it has a little link down in the corner that'll send you back to this slide, okay? And there is again a little chart that you can use to kind of help you track these 10 instincts as you go, Okay, but these are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be something that'll make kind of, provocatively make you think. All the instructions for every single station are on every single station, okay, and how you particularly do them. Okay, but again, this is yours. Like, you can edit it, you can click, you can drag, you can draw. And again, please reach out to me if you have questions. Okay, so that is how you do these stations. So for now, you will need to pause the video, and this will probably take you about 20 minutes or so, 20 to 30 minutes to work through. Okay, all right, excellent. So I'm going to then head back to the Pear Deck presentation when finished, as it said. Okay, and we're going to go on. So let's go back to that Nasarima tribe. At this point, you've done the 10 instinct stations, and let's go back to that reading that we did on slide number 6. And if you didn't notice something strange about it, this is something that I like to do with students, where we take a reading about somebody who we think as other than us, and we actually realize that this is not somebody other. If we take Nasarima and we read it backwards, it's American. Whoa. Amazing, right? And you're like, well, wait a second, what did you just do? This isn't us. Yes, it is, in fact. And if we look here, I've given you just a quick comparison of all these things. The Nasarima go to the bathrooms within their hut. Yes, we do that if you live in a house or a college apartment or whatever it is, right? Drink water with bubbles, soda, alcohol, sparkling water, all these stuff, right? Like left to right, these things all translate. So how does this reveal make you feel? Go ahead and slap a response into Pear Deck. You can pause the video, take some time to process it. If you're surprised by this, if you noticed right away, then maybe you perceived it quicker than I thought you would, which is fine as well. Okay. So what does this mean? So if we look back then at slide number 7, and we look back at these judgments that you gave in the Nasarima tribe, you're like, ooh, this doesn't feel too good anymore. If you said like they were primitive or they were backwards, these are things that very commonly I'll have students type about this group of people. And what could this tribe do to improve themselves? You probably gave a whole variety of answers there, but please notice like there's some really loaded language in here, right? Like the word improve. And if we go back and look at the reading, even the reading itself, you can see that they're trying to push you in this, and how I designed it to really get you to kind of otherize this tribe. So many people do not understand them. They live in several different kinds, there's a lot of they, right? Like down here, clearly the Nasarima tribe are part of a different world than us, lacking refined culture and developed society. Yikes, right? Like there's a lot of loaded language in here and all it took for, and all it takes really for a lot of students to come to some really rough conclusions and judgments of other people is just a few little key words that get them to skew the way that they think about a group of people. And so what was the whole point of this? Well, really it's to help you understand that our historical judgment and how we think about the world previously, that suffers from a lot of the same biases that of how we perceive the world today, as those instinct stations showed. So for example, like if we go back and look at these instinct stations, like we tend to divide groups up, and this is what the first one was about, called the gap instinct. It's like we like to break things into two different groups, even though really that's not how the world really works, right? Another example of this is we tend to, like the Nasarima, is that we tend to focus on the negative things more than we do the positive, right? Again, like a lot of these biases are still there, and maybe this is like an example of like the improvement thing. Is that if you said that line kept going straight up in terms of like what was going to happen with human population, you might have assumed that with Nasarima, like improvement for them would just look like this kind of like linear trajectory, right? And that's not really how people, cultures, civilizations work, right? It tends to be a much more kind of very non-linear experience. Maybe it has like somewhat of an upward trajectory, but it's certainly not predictable in any necessary facet. So again, just giving you a little bit of perspective here. That's why the Nasarima tribe thing is so valuable. Is that it helps us kind of realize that that when it comes to history as well as the present stuff, we got to do some thinking. So what's the solution then? So what was the whole point of this? So really then, it comes down to these, and this is the main lesson that I want to leave you with here as a part of this, a part of this experience, and which is, so how do we actually do history right? And this is kind of like the big four keys that I will leave you with. Okay, so one is when we're looking at historical stuff, or present day stuff, it doesn't matter. The first thing is that we really, 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 really have to understand the context of the situation. Now, what does that mean? That means we look at like surrounding factors. We look at how people at that time perceived themselves and thought about that. We try to, as best as possible, put ourselves in the shoes of the situation, the eyes of the situation, what was going on. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that we sympathize with the folks that we're studying, because in some cases the people that we're studying is awful, right, or are awful. But we do try to, as best as possible, try to get down to the human level of what is going on in a particular historical experience. The next thing is we look at primary sources, witnesses. So again, you probably heard about primary sources in high school and things like that. A primary source, just very simply put, is somebody who witnessed a particular event happening. This could be newspaper, this can be tweets. I'm not going to call them X's. This could be Instagram, like whatever it is, right? It's a witness, somebody who saw something happen at that point. The next thing that we then look at are secondary sources. So with history, this is something that, again, you do spend a lot of time reading books and journals and articles that folks have written, and we consider their biases that they might have. And this is what we call historiography. It's the study of how people have done history, because that matters too. And the reason why this is so significant is because this is the stuff that ends up in your high school textbooks about certain interpretations of history that have ended up over time and why they persist and why they change, right? Then the last thing that we have to do with understanding history is then actually execute some freaking critical thinking. We look at significance, we look at cause and effect, we look at impact, we look at relevance, right? There are a lot of different lenses that we can apply here. We could look at, the effects of gender, we could look at the effects of class or race or different structures of thinking that we could layer on top of the things that we've done already. And that's how we kind of get down to doing good history. Okay, that then brings us to the end of the lesson. Okay, and there's one last thing I'd like you to do here on Pear Deck, and that is just draw or type 2 things you learned from today's lesson. Again, you have to be in Pear Deck in order to actually do this. Okay, so with that, again, you can pause the video, take some time to do this, but this was hopefully a good, helpful walkthrough to our first asynchronous lesson. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. All right, bye.